Very good afternoon. Robertus Lombert. I'm responsible for the Portuguese market from IPLC. And as you can see, it's becoming better and better from Spain. Now we arrive in a beautiful Portugal. The Portuguese market is quite concentrated. Basically, we can see two very big players, which have more than 55% of the market. And then, as often is said, Intermarché, Lidl, Auchan and Dia are together almost as big as the other two. Regarding private label, Sonai and Jerónimo Martins are around 30%. Then we have Lidl, which is around 70%, and Dia 50%, and then Auchan and Intermarché are below 30, around 25%. So, to talk a little bit of the players. Sonai is the biggest Portuguese company, and besides their retail, they have industry, which is their original business activity. They have telecommunication, and they have insurance, financial service, etc. So in reality, the retail is just a big part, but a part of their business. They originally have hypermarkets and supermarkets. Which is quite surprising is that they managed during the last years to grow with a slow percentage, but their hypermarkets, which is absolutely an exception in the actual market, because the global trend is going away from the hypermarket. But they actually defend their hypermarket with innovation, with store experience, and with good category management. Then we have Jerónimo Martins, which is in Portugal smaller, but as a total is bigger than the Sonai MC, because besides Pingo Doce, which is the supermarket chain in Portugal, and Recheia, which is their cash and carry, they are owner of Biedronka in Poland, which is the biggest Polish retailer and has a much bigger turnover than Pingo Doce in Portugal. And for a few years ago, they opened in Colombia Ara, which has actually around 450 stores. Jerónimo Martins is very strong in the supermarket and has only some few almost supermarket, hypermarket size, which has to do with the old Feira Nova, which were hypermarket. Then we have Intermarché. Intermarché, just as in French, that are business owners who together have their buying central, and they are relaunching at the moment their private label, Pursi, which was very important, because if we see their market share is 9.5, but in fresh they have a much higher market share. But their private label was not that strong. And by relaunching their private label, they will grow the total business, because they have already the consumers. Because the consumers buy bread, buy fish, buy meat, and so on. So that is a player which I think will do a next step in the market share. We have Lidl. Lidl started very well in Portugal in '95. And quickly became to 6-7% market share, and through the supermarketification of the last years, with the modernization of the stores, they could do a stabilization and even increase their market share. Because especially in Portugal, the exterior part is very important. They can live in a low-cost apartment almost, but they like to have a good car, they like to have good clothes, and they like to go to nice places. So having a supermarket with a good impression reflects also confidence, and make the possibility to buy more private label much higher. So the supermarketification was, especially in Portugal, very important. Average sales go up by 25% after the renovation of stores. Then we have Auchan. Auchan is typically a hypermarket business, but it is interesting to see that the last 2 years, besides their hypermarket renovations, they launched a very specific My Auchan city store, which is much and much smaller and also more based in as convenience and also with another assortment. And last, we have DIA. And just as in Spain, DIA has a lot of difficulty in Portugal. It is worse the last years, but I think one of the big difficulties of DIA in Portugal is they couldn't manage to have a good quality private label. And if you are in a market where you have a Pingo Doce and a Continente, which is Sonai MC, with a good assortment and a good private label, and it's difficult to find your place. And actually DIA is the one who has most stores. They have around 800 stores, but anyway, it doesn't result. They have small stores, they have very small stores, they have bigger stores, and then their private label is not what it is. And actually it is 4%, but if you see during the year, it started higher and it's becoming lower. So if we start a new year, it will be 3.3% more or less. Also important, this is an approach, because in Portugal it's difficult to get the perfect numbers. The numbers of Sonai MC, actually Sonai MC also has a small part of the business of the managing of the supermarkets and malls, which Continental also has, which actually is not fast-moving consumer goods. Then Intermarché and Auchan have a considerable part with petrol station sales, which is also not really fast-moving consumer goods. The numbers of Lidl are an approach, because Lidl doesn't give the official date. So in the end, this is just a general view of the market. In 2019, the total sales went up around 4.2%, but surprising was that after the economical crisis, which was very big in Portugal, we suspected private label would go down. But actually in 2019, the brands grow 3%, but the private label grows 7.2%. But actually it's logic, because if you start with two very strong players, they have to do something to be different. And where you can be different, not by selling the main brands, but you can find it everywhere, but by creating specific good quality private label products which other players don't have. So now some specific market specifications of the Portuguese market. Retailer brands at the moment is from somewhere between 35 and 36%. But as in Portugal, the price difference between the private label and the brand is quite considerable. If we turn it around in volume, we can see that one of two articles sold in the Portuguese market is private label. Another part which is very specific, I guess, of the Portuguese market is the quantity of products sold in promotions. As we can see, some years ago, the economical crisis in Portugal was very heavy, and brands were losing market share. And they decided to start with promotions to defend their market share. And what we see is nowadays that nobody can live without the promotions. And actually, almost one of two products is sold within a promotion. During the year, it is around 46, 47%. And then in the end of the year, with the Christmas business, it goes above 50%. Then also, we see that supermarkets are the main model or the main store format in sales, with over 50% market share. Then you have the hypermarket and the supermarket and the hyper and the discount. But the main volume is done by supermarkets. Then, as I already explained, by having the two big players, focus is more and more on private label. And we can also see that the trends like sustainability and organic products, they are very much launched and leaded by the private label products. And also we can see that in Portugal, not as in Spain, all the stores are open 7 days a week, also on Sunday, which is not in all countries like that. So What are the trends and what is happening in the market? I think very important was in 2019 the entrance of Mercadona, which is the market leader in Spain. And it was already known that Mercadona would enter, and we can see that all the competitors gave a lot of attention to this market entrance. We see Continent, which is Sun IMC, opening around 50 supermarkets, which are quite similar to Mercadona. We see special attention on private label products in the cosmetical area, because cosmetic is very well developed by Mercadona. We see in a certain way price adaptations or price preparations, and in that way the entrance of Mercadona was very important for the Portuguese market. Mercadona entered with two characteristics. They entered with an everyday low price, so no promotions. But surprisingly, they also maintained the same price level on the private label products, which it was a difficult decision. But when we see that in market, promotions also is done by private label, and I open a store with the same prices, but do not make any promotion, and all the competitors are doing, it becomes difficult to convince the customers to go to Mercadona, which is actually happening, because there was a first reaction from Mercadona is new, but now it's more difficult to sustain the business. Another very important market movement is Aldi. Aldi is in Portugal we have Aldi North, which is more traditional than Aldi South. For example, in England, in the UK, you have Aldi South. Aldi North was quite old-fashioned discounter, and they had a lot of difficulty in adapting to the Portuguese market. But we see a big change in the last 2 years, 3 years. They are very strong in organic. They understand that in Portugal you need a very good location to have success. And we see Aldi growing. In 1 year they grow from, it started 3 years ago, that at once market penetration in a few months went up from 16 to 25%, which is a big movement in a small period. And they had just announced that they will open around 140 other new stores, that actually they have 70 and will go till 2023 to 200 stores. Also important, Mercadona has a lot of direct competitors in the Portuguese market, but we can see that Aldi doesn't, because Lidl during the time has become closer and closer to Pingo Doce on price level, on quality, on service, and Aldi is cheaper. So they have really an easy market to grow. Therefore, in the next years, for me, Aldi will be one of the big influences on the Portuguese market. Then another market trend is convenience. Surprisingly, if you ask in Portugal, what is the big concern? One of the big concerns in Portugal has to do with time. Arranging time between family, work, hobbies, social activities, and so on. Portuguese find it extremely difficult to manage time and not always to be stressed. So that opens the opportunity for convenience. And added to that, modern distribution in Portugal started outside the cities with the hypermarkets. The hypermarkets opened not in the center, but outside of Lisbon, outside of Porto. And in the last year, we see that the retailers are trying to enter in the cities. Lidl is opening its first stores in the city, even in a metro station. We see Auchan with small concept, and everybody is trying to go in a city, and automatically convenience becomes more important. For example, Pingo Doce just opened a store on a university, which is contactless. You can just have an application, you go in and you go out, and automatically everything is paid. And of course, this means also a complete different assortment. What are the market opportunities? I think it's European common. Just as Maliki explained very well on his presentation on Ireland and UK, it is about organic, sustainability, plastic reduction, also healthy influence. A good example of plastic reduction for me is this machine you can find in Pingodos on water bottles. You buy the water bottle, it costs I think 50 cents or €1, and then you can refill in the store. To understand the impact on it, bottled water is a very big product in Portugal. That big product that in the Algarve, in summer, there are Lidl stores which sell one truck a day, 32 pallets a day. So trying to change culture is really has really a big impact. So this is a machine that Pingodos introduced around 1 year ago, and now we see it in all the stores coming up. And the other opportunity is everything which has to do with fresh categories. Modern distribution is around 85% of the market, but when we look to the fresh category, it's 72, 73, because in Portugal it's still very normal to go to the local market Saturday morning and to buy your fresh fish, your fresh meat, vegetables, perhaps some flowers, and you go home. It's almost a traditional way of starting the weekends. We see a lot of people doing that. So there's a big opportunity, because there it's possible to gather new market shares, okay? And then just one last point, which if you want to go to Portugal, I think perhaps is one of the most important ones, is Portugal isn't Spain. And it's very easy to say, but when Mercadona went to the Portuguese market, they started and say, well, more or less 20% we will buy in Portugal and 80% in Spain. Because at first sight, products are very similar. It's bread, it's good cheese, it's good wine, but Spanish wine you can sell in Portugal because the public won't buy it. The bread is slightly different, the cheese is slightly different, and as I heard actually, Mercadona at the moment buys more or less 50% local. So if you want to go within the market in the Portuguese market, consider it as a specific market, because it is a different market, okay? And that's it. If you have any question, please feel free.
Any question? No? Okay.
We see that in Northern Europe, the value-added private labels are growing a lot. That's not only consumer interest labels like free from or organic, but also new tastes. Like, for example, in Germany and in Holland and the UK, you see lots of products being imported from Southern Europe, notably Italy, Spain, maybe also Portugal. How about the Portuguese consumer tastes? Are they open to new experience? Are they open to new tastes, different packaging formats? How adventurous are the Portuguese consumers?
It's an interesting question, but first, if you see to the numbers, private label in value 36% more or less, and in volume 50%, it shows there is a big difference. So with the value-added private label, we can do still a lot of things. That's the first mark. Of course, the organic private label will help to make this lower. But just looking at that number, you're completely right. There is a big market opportunity to be fulfilled in this part of Portugal. The second one, new taste and so on. We see, I think there is a slightly difference. In generally, the Portuguese are very open to new taste, to new experience, to new things. But perhaps we also must remark that we must split a little bit a country. I think that in the Lisbon area and in the Porto area and in the Algarve, the touristic area in the south of Portugal, the opportunity will be much more easy to be accepted than inside inside Portugal, which is still, we can see there is a big difference between the coastal area and the interior of Portugal. But anyway, I completely agree that this is a big opportunity, and people are open to have new tastes and new experiences.
And how about eco-friendly products? Something which is also very on the rise in Northern Europe. Is eco-friendly consumption, like biodegradable packaging or biodegradable products like household cleaning, is that an issue? Do these products exist already under private label in Portugal?
The eco range private label is very small, but the conscience of using all kinds of materials like plastic, packaging material, and so on. This is starting in Portugal also. We can see the plastic bags of the hypermarket disappeared. We see that there is some issue on plastic bags used with fresh products in the supermarket. We see there is some change going on, but ecological products. Not directly, and there are some surprising things, because normally we think eco products are higher in price, but if you go to eco toilet paper and serviettes, how you say, to napkins, we see actually that the eco label is cheaper than the normal product, because it's considered as less quality.
Thank you very much.
And yes, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.